Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Carrot Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 1997 sci-fi drama titled Starship Troopers. Now, Starship Troopers runs for 2 hours and 9 minutes long. It is directed by Paul Verhoeven. It is produced by John Davison and Alan Marshall. The script was written by Edward Meyer, based off of the novel Starship Troopers by Robert A. Heinlein. The score was done by Basil Poledouris, the cinematography by Yost Vacano, and it was edited by Mark Goldblatt and Caroline Ross. And the stars of the movie are Casper Van Dien, Denise Richards, Jake Busey, Neil Patrick Harris, Patrick Muldoon, Clancy Brown, Michael Ironside, Dina Meyer, Brenda Strong, and Blanche Devereaux herself. I'm talking about Rue McClanahan. Like a swarm of bees flying through the nearest honeycomb, sci-fi fans will truly enjoy Starship Troopers. Under the direction of Paul Verhoeven, this bug-stomping mission will likely have you excited over the graphic violence, the epic battles, and in spite of all the shootings and all the giant bugs and all these flesh-eating insect manifestations that are practically more monster than insect. These giant insects, they could tear through human flesh with the greatest of ease. And even military equipment could be only maybe just a slowdown for them, but they get back up right away. But still, underneath all the blood and carnage and all the graphic details, somehow, some way, this movie still manages to have deep-rooted philosophies, if whether turning us into warriors is almost as synonymous to us converting to fascism. Yes, we understand that these giant mutant bugs are running rampage, tearing through human flesh with ease. Still, we sometimes have to stop and think and wonder, who is the real monster? Is it them? Or is it us? Because of our undoubted desire that maybe the only way to survive this world is to be constantly at war. Now, the question we want to ask is that a healthy thing for humanity? Or is it just another trinket towards our selfish needs and desires? Or that fighting just gives you power? It gives you that feeling that you're out to do something for the sake of humanity, but then we have to sort of ask ourselves, at what cost? And if this whole bug-stomping mission is actually worth it, or have we all converted to fascism? That is the question that crosses our minds when watching the movie Starship Troopers. In this epic battle for supremacy between fighters who live in a world where fighting is mandatory and the only means of survival is they battle a slew of giant alien bug-like creatures. We have an unpredictable world where anything is possible, as we may choose to pick sides to see who will emerge victorious in the end. Sure, most likely, for the sake of humanity, people will be pro-human. But then again, some people might even be pro-insect, feeling that, maybe the human race needs to be downgraded a bit because we've been the the manifestation that needs to be stopped. Maybe it's not us trying to stop them, it's them trying to stop us. So, we kind of sort of have to pick and choose who is the more or less of two evils. And they do this in an unbiased sense. Sure, the bug aliens are monsters, but then again, maybe it's us with our superior intelligence and our desperate compulsiveness to want to get into fighting. Maybe sometimes it makes us consider maybe we were the monsters all this time. Either way, there is no good or bad within this mission. It's either bad or worse. You take your pick. The men and women, in spite of the situations where it can be grim, still have time to maintain their immaculate figures even when the battles can become downright ugly. Yes, I know this is kind of a bit of a trope, but it happens in almost every movie that I see. I mean, even through tough, fierce, dangerous missions and epic battles, how do these fighters still manage to keep a pristine, clean, physical image of them? I mean, no broken bones, no disheveled, messy looks. Nobody's getting down and dirty. I mean, and everybody still looks the same as when they got into battle. It just seems a bit surreal in that kind of sense. I mean, I'm not like I'm completely taking that apart, but it just does not feel very authentic. I mean, yeah, I am supposed to suspend disbelief because of the fact that this is a work of fiction and that we're not out there fighting giant alien bug mutants. But usually, in no matter what battle you come in, you don't come out the same. I guarantee you that. You're probably going to be with the men and women will probably end up having messy hair. They'll probably end up having a hobo-like beard. You'll probably be traumatized. It's not just the physical elements, it's also the psychological elements. Going through this whole ordeal of fighting giant bugs, well, it's going to have a lingering effect and it's going to traumatize you probably for the rest of your life. But in this movie, and I guess this could probably be the same for other kind of sci-fi action films or any action films of this caliber, everybody just still looks the same. It's like, where's even the torn clothes? Even if somebody came on with torn clothes or ripped at the seams type of apparel, at least that has some kind of authenticity. But everybody still just keeps their immaculate looks even through the toughest of battles. And believe me, there's going to be a lot of tough and dangerous battles in this movie. Though it was loosely adapted from a 1959 novel by Robert Heinlein, this movie feels like as though it was adapted from a graphic novel, as the characters performed here took the part. Then we have the giant insects, huge, hideous monsters with tentacles that can penetrate through human flesh with ease. In addition to that, they can also summon giant asteroids from their home planet that could easily wipe out the human race. So in the battle between humanity and these giant aliens, well, you may have thought that maybe the humans had the upper strength because of our superior intelligence and their usage of weapons and other warfare apparatuses that are based virtually high tech. But then you realize that even though these insect mutants can't speak English or have any kind of communicative uh, sounds except for being primal and animalistic, still they don't lack intelligence since they can able to easily summon their own warcraft artillery at us. So they're not just some one-dimensional giant bug insect mutants. They actually also have the possession to be quite as intelligent as the human race. And if we're not careful, we could be facing serious, dire consequences like, oh, I don't know, maybe extinction. And if they do it, and if we don't react, we could be gone in just the snap of a finger. The background of the insects as to their earthly invasion is never clear, only just placed into the narrative to show how malevolent they can really be. I'm going to give a hats off to the special effects. The special effects, like the bugs, are truly out of this world. I mean, long before CGI became cool, CGI was around in the 90s, but it wasn't as big as it would be like 2000 and past. But it was still there in existence. It was still relatively in its infancy. But I do have to admit the special effects is truly something of great amazement. This is what makes it stand out, is the atmosphere and the tone. This is what makes the movie stand out. Most science fiction movies tend to have that cliched world where the atmosphere is dark, cynical, and the world seems to be overly dependent on computers and robotic apparatuses. And it's always raining, or there's hardly ever a light of sunshine. Even more chipper science fiction movies like Star Wars definitely has an aesthetic universe where everything is like almost like fade to black, and that there's really no light stuff. Okay, I admit there is no lightness in Starship Troopers with the aliens, mutant bugs running around amok, causing nothing but pain, destruction, and their deadly demeanor is something that needs to be taken under complete scrutiny, or else if not, humanity could become finished. But here's something about this movie that actually makes other sci-fi action films stand out, is that director Paul Verhoeven tries to show that our future, which may be bombarded with robots, computers, and technological devices, or in his case, giant mutant aliens, the human race is still a significant part of our ever growing planet, and the human race isn't devolving, and the characters are cheery and hopeful to carry on for another 1,000 years. And unlike the other, and also in the atmosphere in this movie seems to provide more or less a bright light. I mean, it's not like raining all the time or windy all the time, and the settings is not about darkness, grayness. We're not having a second ice age or a second heat wave like what you see in a lot of movies in a post in a in a post-apocalyptic world, or a dystopian society like what we see here. Even in spite the fact that that all these giant, creepy insects are running around, taking charge, destroying everyone and everything in its path, there is still a light of hope and optimism in this movie. This movie, for a sci-fi action movie, is probably, in my opinion, maybe one of the most optimistic movies out there in this respective genre. There's no dystopian stuff, there's no negativity or looking at the world as it comes to an end to be dark and cynical, but actually not necessarily lighthearted, but more or less has a more optimistic vibe compared to any of the other type of sci-fi action type movies. And even though all the warring moments in this movie, which includes the newsreels that may explain grim, dark pieces of news, while still taking matters in a laid-back situation. Their delivery of lines are utilized with a sardonic, witty banter that shows through all the chaotic scenes. We can have some humor to make light of the situation, even taking jabs at the fighters and the government that runs the world. Yes, this movie is not meant to be taken seriously, and Paul Verhoeven also tries to make light of this movie by adding some well-needed humor and some comical moments. I mean, some of the problems here with a lot of sci-fi action movies is, and this also includes movies like the Alien movies, the Star Trek movies, Star Wars, is sometimes they tend to take things way too extremes and way too seriously. This one here, Starship Troopers, sometimes can take light of a very dark situation, just as a way to say that this is a work of fiction. Yes, the characters are in a dire situation, in a dire predicament, but every so often or every moment or so, we could use some subtle humor, and it truly delivers on that. At first glance, the movie looks like it was adapted from a graphic novel where the opening scenes focus primarily on the training sessions that lead up to the battle scenes. It's also complicated. It's also it's not that complicated actually. It's also complemented by a myriad of World War II propaganda promoting people to take part in the training requirements that will be given to them the strength and the confidence needed to take down the enemy. The only difference is no soldier from World War II got their brains sucked out of their skulls from giant bugs. That's probably maybe the only main difference here is. But back in the 40s and during World War II, there was a lot of posters and a lot of promotional stuff to encourage Americans to get involved in World War II, by promoting the war, saying, oh, going to war is a great thing, you're going to have a lot of fun, you're going to have a lot of good times, only to realize you're not there to have fun and you're not there to have a good time. In fact, no war is fun. Life is not a game. It's to be taken seriously. And if you don't take life seriously, it's going to shoot you in places where you don't want it to be shot, where you don't want to be shot. And yeah, okay, so World War II soldiers did not get their brains sucked out of their skull from giant bugs, but still, they were living a nightmare. And a lot of marketing and a lot of advertising for war had also came into place. For what the reason why? It's because of promoting something for the sake of pride. Yeah. I mean, they did the same thing too also with, the Korean War and the Vietnam War. The Gulf War also had a lot of marketing stuff, selling toys. selling toy BB guns and things like that, and also trying to inspire kids to take part in scouting stuff, which could lead them the skills and the trainings they need to get into the military. I mean, let's face it, the military and marketing are almost very compatible to one another. And, over the years, marketeers have tried to do everything in their power to promote war. Well, in this movie, it almost feels like as if it's not just, like, oh, we'll give you time to think about it. No, they're making war into something far more, like indecisiveness. It's like either you go to war or you just die trying. Or it's like it's the only thing that matters to them and nothing else does. Fighting is the only solution in the world of this movie. And everything else is insignificant. Though it may not have high prolific stars in their cast, the effort put into their performance deserves an applause. Casper Van Dien led the cast as rich kid Johnny Rico from Buenos Aires, Argentina. And, just not to play race politics into it, but he doesn't look Latino in the slightest. I'm not trying to be prejudiced or anything like that, but, I've often wondered why did they cast a Latino to play Johnny Rico? That way he can actually, look the part. Casper Van Dien looks too Germanic to play a South American. Johnny's love interest, Carmen Ibanez, played by Denise Richards, has aspirations of piloting her own plane, which inspires Johnny to join the infantry, not due to his experience, even though he is training, but he's not really performing very well. But he still wants to go out of his way to move himself up to a higher rank in the cadets, not for the teamwork, but for his own ego, and also to try to make an impression on his love interest, Carmen. It seems that issues relating to gender and race have been altered, as men and women are not segregated from anything. Hell, they even take showers together in the buff. I mean, like when you're in school, there's usually a locker room for the guys and there's a locker room for the girls. And yet, in this movie, they take showers together in the buff. And no, they're not doing it for sexual purposes either. But it's just that, public stalls are for both men and women. Dressing rooms are for both men. They're even undressing in front of each other. They're taking showers together in the buff. So the whole segregated gender thing with bathrooms where men and women can coexist at the same time without getting all touchy and all seductive about it. They actually managed to do a good job of making sure that you can go to the bathroom, you can take your clothes off, and you don't have to feel ashamed or embarrassed by it. That's what we see in this movie. Johnny's world gets a lot more interesting as he's reunited with a former girlfriend named Dizzy Flores, played by Dina Meyer, and an instructor who's fair but firm. He goes by the name of Lieutenant Gene Ragsack, played by Michael Ironside. The story may be simplistic on paper, but once the bugs start killing, the body count is overwhelming. Yes, unlike a lot of the monster movies where the emphasis seems to be on the human characters, well, yes, there is some emphasis with the human characters, but once the bugs start tearing into human flesh, this is when things get downright fucking ugly. and now it's all about an epic battle of survival with the still intense and with the still its intentions of being deep rooted and philosophical, and also at the same time some lessons in morality can also come into fruition as well. The film definitely succeeds in keeping it all R-rated and never hints at the film being made for the younger age demographic. So these giant alien bugs are not going to be, like profiteer staples to such toy making conglomerates like Mattel or Fisher Price or Parker Brothers. Neither will the human characters like uh, like Johnny Rico and Carmen Ibanez and Disney Floors. You're not gonna find any licensed toys on the market for them either. But still, this movie is not for the kids to watch the movie. I mean, you're not gonna take your kids to see them. Oh, maybe unless even with giant mutant bugs, little kid will probably go, "Oh, mommy, look at look at the big giant bug. Can I have one for a pet? Oh my God, what did you do to the boy? He snapped him in half." Things like that. No, I would not suggest for you to bring your kids to see this movie. Just wait till they're 18. I mean, it's an R-rated movie. There's a lot of graphic violence in there, a lot of graphic detail, and I think parents would be stupid enough to actually let their kids sit through and watch all this carnage. Sure, the images are impressive, though it may be recommended that if you can't handle the grotesque dissections and the gooey green slime splattering on the soldier, then maybe this movie may not be for you. Your stomach will never feel the same after looking at all the carnage that's shown to you in this movie. It's an understatement to say that these bugs aren't ready for battle. Their claws can do severe damage that doesn't just kill, but mutilate. I mean, it could drill through your skull, it could drill through your body from one end to the other. I mean, if it took a tentacle and shoved it right up your ass, it'll come right through your mouth. You know, this is just an example of just how deadly and how brutal these mutant bugs are. Once it gears off from a sci-fi adventure to a war film, it goes off kilter a bit. It never loses interest, but there is a fascinating scene where the creepy crawlers enter a fortress where the troopers retreat. And when the soldiers see the swarm, it pays off a bit of an homage from the siege at the Alamo, only more macabre. So in the end, it's refreshing that the future depicted in Starship Troopers has technological devices not as advanced as the other sci-fi films. Sure, the soldiers can fly to other galaxies with ease, but in battle they are still using warfare that seems kind of like still stuck in the 90s, and I mean the early 90s, maybe even the late 80s. Does that mean no chemical or nuclear advances? Oh well, best of luck to them. Personally, I gotta say it, I gotta admit, I actually enjoyed Starship Troopers a lot. Sure, there might be a few small weaknesses in there, but it's not gonna deter me too much. Once again, the action is great. Also, this movie also has a lot of intellectual merit going around about whether or not pushing military propaganda is a moral thing to do, or is it just another ego stroke for us just to cash in on war because, let's face it, war and marketing can almost be quite synonymous with each other. They've been promoting war and encouraging people to join the army dating back to World War II with posters and billboards up encouraging people to either join the army or the Marines or the Navy or the Armed Forces or the National Guard. They have been doing this kind of stuff. They did this too with the Korean War, with the soldiers or the cartoony type stuff, selling toys, selling mugs, selling T-shirts, selling bicycle stickers, just so that they can promote themselves and encouraging people to join a military discipline, whether it be the Army, whether it be the Marines, whether it be the Navy, the Coast Guard, the National Guard. And then many times it has worked. Hell, even promoting and selling toys has been a great marketing staple to get families and friends to join the army, even encouraging or even brainwashing young kids into thinking the army's cool. It's like going to summer camp. You'll have all these fun activities to do, only to realize that all these fun activities that are given during the training sessions is actually more atrocious and barbaric. Well, this movie also sometimes has this kind of frame of mind: is war an actual thing that people want, or is it that something that people need? In some ways, war is no different than marketeering. If it's to get its message across, then I guess it's probably just doing its job. So, with all that said and done, if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would give Starship Troopers an 8.5 out of 10. I highly recommend you to see this movie. It's a really good one if you like the shooting action, but also it's got a lot of deep-rooted philosophy about whether or not we're actually fighting these aliens for a good cause or just as another way to promote ourselves that war is the only key to to any of our problems that we face in this world today. So I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember the 3 simple rules: be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Carruthwriter saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.